Hello, and welcome to the Silver Screen Podcast, a weekly episodic look at movies. I'm DK, and with me today is Mike, who, being the tired old man that he is, has once again graciously handed hosting duties over to me this week. Hello, Mike.
Oh, hello! Back in my day, I wore a lemon on my belt, which was the style at the time. Hello, everyone.
Grandpa Simpson strikes. How you doing, man?
I'm all right. I've been a little bit under the weather, as you know, which is also part of the reason, as well as my advanced age, why I asked you to kind of take lead hosting duties on this one. But I'm excited to talk about all things Jurassic World, and I'm very much looking forward to the new one. So fingers crossed it's good.
Yeah, nice one. Well, I'd like to give a warm welcome to those of you who've become regular listeners over the last few episodes. I'm glad to have you back. And for those of you joining us for the first time, hello. We hope you find it enjoyable and decide to stick around. You may not always agree with our opinions, but we're always open to hearing why. Now, today's episode is the 20th Jurassic World, the Colin Trevorrow-directed semi-sequel to Spielberg's classic Jurassic Park. With the alleged final installment, Jurassic World Dominion, doing cinemas over the next few days, we thought we'd take a look at the sort of reboot that led us here. And as you'll no doubt hear, we've spared no expense. You can insert the rim shot in later. Now, the plot for a fourth Jurassic Park, a long history, is originally alleged to have been conceived by Spielberg just before the release of the third film back in 2001. Laura Dern and Richard Attenborough were due to return, along with the rumour of Keira Knightley as an adult Alex. The production, however, never really got past the scripting stage due to the writer's strike and the subsequent death of Michael Crichton. Although the project never really got off the ground, it did feature several elements that may seem familiar: a mercenary-type character who trained genetically modified dinosaurs for rescue missions, and an action sequence taken from the Lost World novel that involved motorcycles and velociraptors. Now, it was read by Spielberg in 2011, with Trevorrow joining the production to write and direct. According to Trevorrow, it was a good weekend spent trying to convince Spielberg to change the name of the new installment from Jurassic Park to Jurassic World. Casting took place shortly afterwards, with Chris Pratt, Bryce Dallas Howard, Irfan Khan, and Vincent D'Onofrio joining the production between 2013 and 2014. Now, it was released in 2015, as we know, and for a while was the third highest grossing movie of all time. It was also to date, and adjusted for inflation, highest grossing movie of the Jurassic Park franchise, leading to an abundant merchandise, 2 sequels, the second and supposedly final of these being Jurassic World Dominion. It also spawned a successful animated series, Camp Cretaceous, that focused on a small group of children, on a small group of children, with events in the series take part concurrently with the events of the original movie. The 5th and final season of which will be showing on a certain streaming service this coming July. As well as animal rights, the movie's theme, according to Trevorrow, is that of consumer excess and consumerism. Humanity's worst tendencies, wanting everything to be bigger, better, faster, etc. This is obviously present in the form of the Indominus Rex and the almost Disney-like presence the park has in the movie, with Hammond taking his place as a substitute for Walt, even down to the statue. Quite ironic, considering the amount of merchandise that the movie gave us. So, you got any thoughts on this, Mike?
Well, first of all, I'm really pleased that you did shout out Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous, because against all odds, it's probably the second best thing in the Jurassic franchise after the original movie, which really surprised me because it is aimed squarely at kids. And yes, there are a few instances of there's a few instances of well, it's ridiculous that you were able to escape this because you're a bunch of kids, but if you can get past that, it's really well written, and it actually ties in. The most recent one, I think, tied in with Fallen Kingdom. It's starting to approach that point. And it's surprising how well done it is and how much of the kind of spirit of the Jurassic stuff it has. So if you haven't seen Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous, or you maybe are just kind of well, it's only a kids show, give it a watch and you might well be surprised. It's surprisingly good.
I think it's the Jurassic Park franchise version of Clone Wars when you look at it. It was for kids, but the number of adults I've seen that just rave about the show, and it is a really good show.
I've had the same situation. People that are Jurassic Park fans but didn't really care for the Jurassic World movies have went and watched Cretaceous, and they're really impressed with it. We'll talk about the other things you were mentioning as we get into it, because there's definitely a hint of talking about consumerism and people wanting things to be bigger and better, and there's an attempt at satire, I would say, there somewhere. So we'll get into that later.
I don't know if you. I mean, it's just like obviously the long line of themes that the movie brings up. I don't know if you saw that interview with Laura Dern and Sam Neill a short while ago.
No.
Yeah, Laura Dern was mentioning how the age difference back then in Jurassic Park was completely inappropriate between her and Sam Neill because there's like 20 years between them. But Sam Neill was saying that he believed that the original themes of that movie was GM crops, while the new one, in his opinion, is about the climate crisis.
Oh, right, well, that makes sense considering the events of what happened at the end of Fallen Kingdom. Not to get into spoilers, so I can kind of see where they would be coming from with that.
Yeah. Before we go any further, it's time for our now usual spot where we take a quick look at some trivia on the movie. So without further ado, it's time to go behind the scenes. And honestly, Mike, I feel that by this point we should have some countdown style music for this. You know,
I feel like I should have replaced you with Mr. DNA to do this one, but you know.
Oh God! Well, I could
Let's
try
go
doing
behind the scenes. Let's
dinosaur DNA.
Yeah,
no, I was thinking more along that. Shall we get the old Top of the Pops theme? Is that available? Just have that playing in the background, and then couple that with the, Mr. DNA. I guarantee them lost everyone.
Or have we just gained subscribers?
Well, there are some sadomasochists out there.
No, we'll not do that. We'll just keep with your fantastic dulcet tones given behind the scenes.
Oh my God, you are desperate. Now, I mentioned before that it's officially one of the biggest earners in existence. But when it opened, it was for a time held the record for the biggest box office opening of all time, grossing over $524 million in a weekend. It's since been beaten by the usual suspects, of course, Marvel and Star Wars, but it still stands at the number 5 spot. So, didn't do bad, all things considered. Now, several actors were considered for the role of Owen Grady before they decided to go with Chris Pratt, including Henry Cavill, Jason Statham, Josh Brolin, and Armie Hammer. Probably a good thing they went with Pratt rather than Hammer. May have been difficult to discern just who was eating the park's guests.
Oh. Will I keep that joke in? That's the
Now, Bryce Dallas Howard had to undergo a training session during production to be able to run in heels for the film's many shots. Can't believe, that actually occurred. Katie McGrath, Zara, did her own stunts during production. The section where she's picked up, tossed around, and dropped in the water before being eaten by the Mosasaurus were all filmed by McGrath herself in a harness. No CGI, well, apart from the dinosaurs, obviously, was used in the section where she becomes an appetizer. There's also a little homage in that scene, I'm sure you've picked it up, for Spielberg's Jaws. Weirdly enough, the Pteranodon scene the Pteranodons kill more people in this movie than the Indominus Rex. Now, Harrison Ford was originally set to star in the movie, but dropped out in the early stages of development, citing several reasons, one of which was the quality of his previous movie, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Make of that what you will. Ironically enough, this was the second time Ford turned down a role in the franchise, as he was originally approached by Spielberg to play Alan Grant in the first one. Now, the main street...
Sounds like you're actually in the aviary there with the pteranodons.
As I said, we spared no expense. Now, if you suddenly hear, screaming followed by wet squelching sounds, maybe best to, stop the recording at that point. But until then, we're fine.
Nah, I'm gonna just be exactly like all of the idiots that are in these movies and be like, no, it's fine. We'll contain it.
It's fine. I'll go in. I'll go in. He'll be fine. Oh, there's an arm.
We'll contain it. It's gonna be fine. Don't worry. It's nowhere near any of the big exhibits and stuff. It's all good.
Now, the main street and boardwalk area seen in the film covers an area of 300 by 200 feet, shot in the car park of an abandoned Six Flags resort in New Orleans. If anyone's interested, want to visit, maybe, if you're attacked, you can pick up your drinks and run.
I assumed it was an actual set. I didn't realize it was like a constructed set. I didn't realize it was an actual place.
Yeah. There's that many places in America abandoned. They probably just think, oh, what the hell? It's cheaper.
Ah, well.
Now, there's a popular fan theory that the Chris Pratt character, Owen Grady, is a small boy from the beginning of Jurassic Park that Alan Grant terrifies with a raptor claw. Now, Grady's knowledge of pack behaviour could be instilled in from this frankly terrifying speech Grant intimidates the boy with to teach him a lesson, as well as the comment on showing them respect. No one on production has confirmed or denied this, although
Oh,
Whit Hertford, the actor
I
who
was gonna
played
say.
the child, has dismissed this, stating, "Guys like me don't grow up to look like Chris Pratt."
Yeah.
Although, wouldn't it be wonderful if we had some sort of confirmation of this in Dominion? You know, you're finally getting to see Alan Grant and Owen Grady on screen. It would be a nice little touch.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, and one for the collectors out there, Jurassic World marks the third time that Chris Pratt had a Lego minifigure based on one of his characters. First and second being
Guardians of the Galaxy and the Lego Movie.
exactly the Peter Quill, aka Star-Lord. Now, Lego used the same headpiece from that minifigure for the Owen Grady piece, so obviously nothing like cutting down on costs.
Well, why not? It's the same actor. It would be logical, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm guessing you'll be as tickled with this as I was, Mike. But during the gyrosphere section with Gray and Zach, the instruction video features Jimmy Fallon giving facts about both the dinosaurs around them and the gyrosphere itself. Among his many pratfalls, he informs them that the sphere is comprised of you'll have to forgive me, I'm not American, aluminium oxynitride for enhanced durability. The common name of which is, any idea, Mike?
Aluminium nitrate? I have no idea.
Its actual nickname is transparent aluminum.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it looks
one for the Trek fans there.
Exactly. It looks like Dr. Marcus of Plexicorp. Sorry, Dr. Marcus Nichols of Plexicorp finally figured out that matrix and is living the high life on a beach somewhere. So that's what I discovered looking into the movie's production. Anything you'd like to add, Mike? Any behind the scenes trivia?
You touched on a lot of the stuff that I was going to mention, which is good. Yeah, the other thing that I was going to talk about, which I will when we get to talking about that scene, was the Katie Mcgrath thing. Because you probably are not aware that I am like the world's biggest Katie Mcgrath fan, like obsessive. So I was chuffed to see her in this film, and I know a lot of information about that scene. And also thought she was very good in Supergirl for the seasons that she was in it.
See, I never watched. Was it Merlin that she was in?
Oh, she was so good in Merlin. Yeah,
I've never seen an entire episode of Merlin. So this was the first time that I'd actually seen her, and it wasn't until Supergirl that I just thought, okay, I've turned into the wolf from the Red Riding cartoon.
Fair enough. I'm just impressed that you pronounced her name right, because most people don't. So yeah.
Well, see, if I can't do basic research, then yeah, what's the point?
Awesome. Well, not to make it into a complete one-person show, because there's a lot of people in the movie. So yeah. If that concludes the behind-the-scenes thing, that was what I was going to jump into next, was the acting, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, that's not a problem. I'm going to say, before we go into specifics, any first impressions you want to give before we plow on, or do you want to go straight?
Yeah, I can do. Well, I can do. I can tell you that anybody that knows me will know that I am such a huge fan of the first Jurassic Park. It is the movie that I credit with making me love movies. It's such an important film to me. I saw it when I was 11 years old. It is the first film I saw in cinemas ever. And so, yeah, I absolutely adore that movie, and by extension, I guess, the franchise, but we'll see. So, yeah, I obviously went into Jurassic World wanting that level of kind of, come on, nostalgia or whatever. And there's bits and pieces of it. So I certainly wouldn't say it was a disaster or anything like that, but I'll get into my proper opinions later. And if anybody is interested in hearing me just rave about Jurassic Park for, I think, an hour and a half or so, I will post the link in our description, because I have a podcast that I did with our regular contributor, Will Templar, where we talked about Jurassic Park. He saw it for the first time, and I watched it for many dozen times later, and I still think it's one of the greatest movies ever made, but maybe I'm biased. So yeah.
No, you've not got any argument from me. It's in my top 10.
Yeah, awesome, fantastic. It's just such a good movie. Right, so yeah. Did you have any sort of initial first impressions or anything you wanted to share before we jump in?
Like you, I was obsessed with the first movie. I'm a bit of a dino nerd, so yes, I'm not going to go into details because I'm going to let you give my opinion later. But yeah, I enjoyed it for what it was, but let's be honest, it's never going to live up to the original.
I don't think the original's been topped yet, unfortunately. Spoiler alert. But yeah, anyway.
So with regards to acting, anything that you'd like to say? What about let's go with Chris Pratt for a start.
Well, I have just a list of kind of things that I could probably rattle through, but yeah, we'll go with Chris Pratt first of all, because obviously we should probably deal with the leads. And I don't know about you, but I found that it just seemed to me like a lot of the performance, like a solid 80% of the performance, was just Chris Pratt doing his familiar shtick. Like I didn't really buy it as a character; it was just another Chris Pratt character, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
The exception to that is when he was forced to kind of get serious, and he had to be the voice of reason and the one that was like railing against the kind of corporatism and stuff. I found it a lot more impressive and a lot more believable as Owen Grady rather than just actor Chris Pratt. But yeah, a lot of the time I think he really should have been more restrained, perhaps by the direction and stuff, or more given more of a unique angle. Because there's, like I said, most of the movie, this could be Star-Lord or it could be, you know, the guy from the Lego movie, even, or any number of Chris Pratt's like action comedy type characters. It's just another of those.
Exactly. It was very much Chris Pratt playing Peter Quill, playing Owen Grady. He was flavour of the month at that point.
Yeah.
So you get what you pay for, I guess. Maybe he was directed to be like that, saying, you know, just be your lovable self.
Well, that's probably the thing that,
as you say, when he gets serious, he takes on an added dimension. But it just takes a little while to get to that. And at the start, the Raptor scene inclusive, you can't quite buy him as this ex-Navy character.
No, I never really bought that anyway. But I also have issue with just the idea of the tamed raptors that I'll get to later. But I think that's a stupid idea to start with. And certainly, if you're going to try to convince me that these ultimate killing beasts from the first movie can be tamed, it's not going to be Chris Pratt that convinces me that you can do that, you know. But anyway, so
okay. And now Bryce Dallas Howard. What did you think to?
I didn't really have a lot of thoughts on Bryce Dallas Howard, other than the fact that she's really kind of good at portraying the bitch character, for want of a better word. She really makes you dislike her, which is a weird backhanded compliment because I think that's what you're supposed to do at those points in the movie. But I think she got a little bit too cheesy and harder to root for when she kind of has the turns either way. But again, it's probably more the writing than the actual acting, because it just seemed a little cheesy and unbelievable and very convenient, I guess. So I think in a way she might have been better served if the writers had just made her a solid antagonist all the way through. But yeah, sorry.
There were points where you couldn't really take her seriously. I know the scene where he comments on her footwear and she, takes off her shirt, ties it round her belt and says, "Come on, let's go." You're supposed to kind of root for the character, but it comes across as a little cringe.
Yeah.
I actually like her better towards the end of the movie, if I'm being honest, where she's just this scared. Because that's the character that she portrays in the first half is insanely as the character would be acting in the second half. You're not going to get this tough as nails person straight away, especially with that background.
I don't know. I think I kind of bought that a lot more because it was kind of, a woman in the corporate world kind of thing. And I appreciated the portrayal of her as kind of hard-nosed and more interested in profit margins than life and such. But like I said, I just didn't really buy the turn when it happened from that to like, I'm all of a sudden caring and a family person and all the rest of it. And it's like, yeah, are you though? I mean, and then, like you said, the fact that they kind of have to immediately, because they can't have her too often, they immediately do the kind of action heroine, bit at the end with her drawing the T-Rex out to kind of save the day. And it's like, yeah, this just feels really forced.
I don't know. I've got to be honest. The entire section where she's running from the T-Rex with the flare and stuff, it awakened certain feelings in me. It has to be said.
That's a bias on your part, then, clearly.
Yes.
Bryce Dallas Howard's a very attractive woman, but I can't say that particular scene did anything for me. But
if I'm being honest, I think the only prior experience I'd seen of her acting was Lady in the Water.
You hadn't seen Spider-Man 3?
I wouldn't really consider that acting in that movie. It's, she turns up, gurns a little, reacts to Topher Grace gurning even more, and that's about it. That's all I can say about Spider-Man 3.
Fair enough. I think she's a very good actress, but I will say I think she's a much better director based on the Star Wars TV shows that she's directed so far. So
definitely.
Make of that what you will.
Yeah. I did think she was good in the Black Mirror episode.
Oh, yes, definitely. Yeah. I forget about that, but yeah, definitely. 100%. She's a good actress. Like I said, it's just that I don't think she's not really given anything to work with these movies. And there's a little bit of something in Fallen Kingdom where it's like, at least now, you can believe she's going to be this kind of environmentalist and this person caring for everything. And it gives us something to try and play, but even then it's forgotten by about halfway through the movie. So,
Yeah.
It's a shame.
I
She's capable of more, for sure.
Definitely. Now, what about a boss? Irfan Khan.
I thought he was excellent. R.I.P. by the way, because he passed away not long ago.
Yeah,
which seems to be the weird curse of people who play the owners of the Jurassic Park franchises. So James Cromwell, just watch your back. But no, I thought he was fantastic. He was a breath of fresh air because he was a character that seemed three-dimensional for the first kind of. Well, not that there's none of them, but there's very few of them, and he seemed very like he wasn't just all one note. He was excited for the park, but at the same time, he did care about people. But he was also a little bit cocky and a little bit, there's a little bit of humor with the whole he wants to fly himself, but he's not good at it kind of thing.
Yeah, you did get the sense underneath it all, he could be a very, very nasty person. However, he played that down with the fact I'm talking about later in the control room, but he played that down with the fact that he seemed to care more about the guests and the actual well-being of the dinosaurs, and I loved that. And the fact that later on he wants to do something, he's not content to just send people out to die. He wants to actually get involved, and I think he came out as a really likable, really heroic character. And I think it's a shame that he was dealt with in such an offhand manner. I mean, obviously, it drives the point home with regards to just how bad this Indominus Rex is, and the events that conspired, to take him down. But yeah, I think it was a shame he wasn't used more. I really like Masrani as a character.
Yeah, I do too. I think he's an interesting character, and I think, like I said, I didn't necessarily see him as that hard-nosed. I saw him as the interesting counterpoint to Claire, because when he was being particularly kind of brutal, I guess, it was because of the well-being of people rather than just like, oh, I want these numbers to match or I want to make this money or whatever. He didn't seem purely money motivated. So in that way, I think he makes sense as a successor to John Hammond as well.
I'm not saying he's like an Elon Musk, completely
no.
Devoid of kind of humanity character.
My point is that there is basically parts of that to Claire, which I think is that it's well played that you get that, because she does seem for the first part of the movie, which again is part of why I struggle to understand her turn and to justify it, because it seems a lot like she's very, like I kind of alluded to earlier in the joke, the kind of whole idea of the Indominus Rex has escaped, but it's fine, it's nowhere near the other exhibits, so we'll just keep the park open and stuff. And it's like, really? That seems
Masrani is a much more empathic character than Claire.
Exactly. And that's even without the whole cheesy thing of like, oh, I'm just going to, foist these kids off on someone, even though my sister wants me to look after them and I don't really care and whatever. Which again is a way less effective way of doing the whole I don't like kids thing than the first Jurassic Park movie managed to do. So, you can't even follow the same beats as well, and that's not great.
With regards to the kids, what did you think to them?
I wasn't impressed, I have to say. I did not think they were good. They were I hate saying this whenever it's child actors as well, because it's a cliche to insult them, and I know that child actors obviously shouldn't be held to necessarily the standard of adult actors, but I just found that the littlest kid only ever talked in complaining and exposition, and that's not character. It was either, oh, my parents are getting divorced, what am I going to do? Or, oh, look, that is Indominus Rex such and such. This was alive 4,000 years ago. This eats this fauna. And I was like, all right, you're either an encyclopedia or an annoying, just whiny brat. And as for the older kid, he was just literally the horn dog cliche. But I just never. It's just
That's
literally
exactly
just like,
what I was going to say. He came across as incredibly creepy, that one, in the first half, because all he did was basically stand and stare.
I know, right?
You just came thinking, oh my god, if I was a teen girl, I'd be looking for an adult.
Yeah, definitely. And I also have to say as well, the kids are just shit, and they are basically responsible for Katie McGrath's character Zara getting killed, because they didn't even get punished for just effing off away from their protector and just going and doing their own thing. And they're just, nobody in the park cares. These two little kids are just, yeah, whatever. It's not like we have massive dinosaurs here that can kill you.
But in fairness, they do have bigger things to worry about, literally, at that point.
Well, no, they don't. They do eventually, but I mean, at the points where they're going first to the gyrospheres and then the other ride they went on first, and when they go to the T-Rex enclosure or whatever on their own, Nobody's blinking an eye, and it's like, who's looking after these freaking kids? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I like Ty Simpkins, who is the younger kid.
I like him in other stuff, weirdly enough.
I don't know if it's a carryover from Iron Man 3 or...
I like him a lot more in Iron Man 3, I will say that, than I do in this movie. He seems to be doing a much better performance there.
To me, he was a lot more sympathetic in this one, obviously, than Nick Robinson is his older brother, because, as I say, you know, the older brother, until about halfway when he actually started maybe kind of acting like a brother because the script depended on it, until that point, you really just thought, this kid's going to end up with so many restraining orders by the time he's 20.
It was just like you said, it was just creepy. It was like he was stalking every girl he kind of looked at as like, she's interesting, let's follow her in the light or whatever. And it's like, no, dude.
And the fact that, you know, he's an utter douche to his girlfriend back home.
Yeah, exactly. And to the woman who's looking after them, to be fair, who's done nothing wrong, and he's just like, oh, let's ditch this bitch. She's done nothing. She's just looking out for you.
Which leads us to, go on, let's hear it on Katie McGrath.
Well, there's a huge amount of controversy about this scene because it is, some would argue, certainly the common consensus is it's way unnecessarily brutal of a killing. It's also one of the only times that there's no real kind of, I guess, justification, because like in the previous movies, it's always been like a bad man gets his comeuppance kind of thing. It was also the first time that we'd ever seen a woman murdered by one of the dinosaurs in any of the movies, and this is the fourth movie, as you pointed out, so that's unusual. And it led to a lot of accusations of sexism on behalf of the filmmakers towards that character, which were then immediately put to bed because, as I've said in the past, you can't always leap to conclusions with these things. When it was revealed that Katie McGrath specifically took the part in the movie with the one condition that she would get, in her own words, a really gnarly death scene, which is why she was given that scene. As you said, she was completely up for doing all the stunts and everything. She was on harnesses. She was pulled back and forth. Her death scene was originally not supposed to be Zara. It was meant to be one of the trooper security guys. But like I said, when they wanted to get Katie McGrath in the film and she requested that specific kind of death, they were like, yeah, why not? You know? So it wasn't necessarily a comment on women or English people or nannies. It was just literally an actress who wanted to do something cool and gnarly and get killed in a really brutal way. But yes, tonally, when you're watching the movie, it is very jarring.
It's very off, innit? But respect to her for wanting to do that. I didn't know any of this, obviously, until I was looking up for behind the scenes, and my respect for her has grown immensely. Yeah,
definitely. She's a really good actress, and she's usually up for like stunts and everything and things like that. And she still has yet, for my money, to hit the kind of stratospheric performance that's going to really make her hugely well known. Supergirl was close, but I think she's got something. She's got it left in her that she's going to eventually explode and break out into something bigger. Hopefully,
I hope so, because I think she's a. You know, I'm not as obviously as big a fan as you, but from her performance in Supergirl, I think she's a really good actress.
Yeah, she is. And when you think that she's doing an accent in basically every performance, like she's not English or American, she's got the most broad Irish accent, and yet her accent work is pretty flipping flawless, you know?
Yeah, I think there were only a couple of instances in the entire run of Supergirl where it kind of crept in.
Yeah. So that was my thoughts on that scene and on Katie McGrath. Who I would say was wasted, but if she got the kind of role and the death that she wanted as an actress, then fair enough. She got what she wanted. You can't really complain.
That's fair enough. I think this script had a lot of quite decent actors wasted. When you look at it, I mean, we've already commented on Irfan Khan, but I'm thinking Vincent D'Onofrio. He's kind of a one-note villain in this. I love the actor himself. But
I don't know if I would say he's because he's not. I wouldn't want to see more of him. So yeah, he's a better actor than this role. To be fair, sorry.
Definitely. What about BD1?
That's where I'm torn because, like I said, given my kind of almost religious fervor for all things Jurassic Park, he's from that original movie, and I didn't like the whole kind of spoiler alert, the whole turn. Of now he's the sinister mad scientist. And I was like, there was no indication of this in that first movie. And I don't like the idea that now when I watch that first movie, I'm going to be thinking, oh, that's that sinister guy kind of thing. But having said that, it makes absolute sense. And it is played very well by the actor. I just don't know if I love the fact of that particular character being the one involved.
It is very jarring because you've not seen him obviously since the original, and as you say, the turn is just completely out of the blue. But in an in-world perspective, you could see that happening.
Yeah, and I do like, this is not really related to the acting, but I do like that they actually give him the line to slip in to shut up all of the actual amateur paleontologists and stuff that he actually points out. Yes, look, if we were being literal, pretty much all of the dinosaurs would look different, but we're not making them look like they would have. We're making them look what people expect them to look like. Yeah. So all of the people that have been complaining for decades about, like, some of them should have feathers and some of them wouldn't look like that and they wouldn't be that size and stuff. It's like basically the filmmakers like giving a middle finger, like, yeah, we know, shut up. It's not supposed to be a documentary. You know? So,
I did like the scene where he and Irfan Khan were playing against each other.
Yeah, that was really good.
A really good scene between them, and I think it shows just both how good actors they are. And I've not really seen BD Wong in anything outside of the Jurassic Park movies, if I'm being completely honest.
I have seen him briefly in Gotham playing Hugo Strange. He was not good. Oh. But then again, I didn't like that show. I stopped watching after season 2. So.
I've never watched an episode of that. From the entire premise, it was a turn off.
Yeah, it wasn't good. But no, speaking of that scene, though, I do think that's one of the better scenes in the movie, and it's probably one of the best lines when Masrani says, well, I didn't ask you to create monsters when I asked for something bigger, and he said monster's a relative term to a canary.
You're stealing my favourite line, you bastard.
Well, I won't say any more then, but yeah, I do. I like that line. It sums up a lot quite well. So
yeah. It's a very good scene, and again, I think the amount of the talent that's involved in this film, and with the exception of a couple of actors, very few of them get, in my opinion, enough to work with, and they're extremely talented.
Well, I'll get into it because I only have like another 4 actors listed, and it's really weird because they're all somewhat underserved and varying degrees of good. So the first one is, yes, it is perennial character actress Judy Greer, who appears in this movie in yet another thankless, she's just there as a backup character kind of role. That woman, honestly, she is the hardest working woman in Hollywood, and she only ever plays the best friend or the sister or...
Didn't she play like the divorced mother in 2 movies that year, this and Ant-Man?
Yeah, I was just going to say she's in the 2 Ant-Man movies barely as a kind of also-ran character. And she's so good. If you've ever seen Arrested Development or the cartoon series Archer, she is amazing and she's got great comic chops and she's a really good actress. And Hollywood just cast her in a freaking lead role already. Come on.
See, this is the thing. I cannot see Judy Greer in anything without thinking that any time, at any point, she's going to go, woo, and lift her shirt up to pixels.
Say goodbye to these, Michael.
Yeah.
And I just keep expecting her to go, you're not my supervisor.
Yeah. Oh, God. Yeah, she's a good actress, but she seems very underused, and I'm not sure why people haven't cashed in on her.
It's because she's that good. Like I said, as the best friend role, I'm thinking of what's that Jennifer Garner like big rip-off movie where she's the best friend in that. Where
13, is it 13 going on? 30?
That's the one. Yeah, she's the kind of best friend character in that, and she's so good in that role that's all she ever gets cast as. Apart from randomly when she was the like background ape in the Planet of the Apes sequels recently as well, which was also kind of like, she's not even the main ape. Come on.
I had no idea she was in those movies.
She's the kind of the ape that the lead guy has a child with or something along those lines. So yeah, she's there playing it. Well, I see it there. It's a what you call it? It's like a motion capture performance or something, but still, like I said, she deserves better. But having said that, there was one scene where she was really bad, which I was really surprised by because she's normally very reliable and she has great comedy chops, but I've never seen her try drama. And when she's crying on the phone to Claire, Bryce Dallas Howard's character, it was really bad. And I was like, is this supposed to be bad? Are we supposed to just not be believing that she's genuine in this scene or something? Because this is awful acting, really. So, yeah, one scene just jarred horribly. And I wasn't sure if that was just me or if you'd picked up on anything like that. Or...
I didn't pick up on that, but that entire scene itself was a little cringe for me. It was just there for exposition, really. And I don't think either Greer or Dallas Howard carried it off particularly well.
I agree. But speaking of that family, the husband of the family, I was very shocked to learn in my current rewatch of The Office, it's bloody David Wallace from The Office.
Is that the American Office? Because I've never watched.
Yeah, the American one.
Sorry.
He's not an actor, which is really weird. He was hired to do The Office, even though he was from that world of like business stocks and shares, etc. But he is basically the head of Dunder Mifflin for the first, I think, 6 years of the American Office. So he's like the long-suffering superior to the Steve Carell, Michael Scott character. And he's such a broad character, or at least an important character in that world, that when I watched it, I was like, David Wallace playing the dad. What's going on with that? Is such a weird bit of casting that they pulled off.
And he had very little to do.
Oh, he had nothing to do. He's there for the paycheck, to be fair. But other than that, the other things I wanted to mention were, yes, obviously we get Lauren Lapkus and Jake Johnson in the control center, which is a tale of two different things for me, because I like Lauren Lapkus a lot as a comedian, and even when she was in like The Big Bang Theory, she was decent, but I find her terrible in this movie. She just seems so stilted and so trying too hard, I guess.
Yeah.
And by contrast, Jake Johnson is probably my favorite actor in the movie because he's just so good. He's got such comic chops, even when the scene is more serious. He can absolutely play the reality of the comedy for it. And he slays. He steals lines and scenes that he's in, and he gets like the fantastic moment of heroism at the end, which is just, again, it's such a wonderfully subversive thing that the film just undercuts the whole heroic get the girl moment, because it hits you with the reality of like, no, that's not how life works, which fits that character really well. Plus, he is the Jurassic Park fanboy, so that's naturally going to appeal to us, isn't it? So, yeah.
He's another one that hasn't really made it big, and you would have expected him to by now, because he was absolutely fantastic in New Girl. He was great in this. And then he just, I'm not sure if you've seen him anything, but he kind of vanished off the map after that. And I was expecting bigger things.
I do know that he got this role because he was in Colin Trevorrow's first movie, his indie movie. I think it's called, I can't remember what it's called. That's something along the lines of Batteries Not Included, but it's not that, because that's a different movie. But yes, he was in Colin Trevorrow's first indie movie, which is how he got cast in this. And I know he's currently leading a very adult-themed TV series of some kind, but it's on one of the like obscure streaming services like Apple or something, so I've not seen it. But yeah, he is another one that really you would expect bigger things from. I agree.
What about Omar Sy? I'm kind of glad. I mean, he didn't get much to do, but it was nice to see that he made it through to the end of the movie. And
he didn't make an impact on me at all. He was just there as Owen's mate. You know what I mean? So
he seemed to crop up every once in a while, go, Mel, and then fade into the background. And I think he could have been given more to do.
Yeah, I can't say he made any impact.
Yeah, I liked him as a character, but and I think they should have just, maybe built him up a little more.
Yeah, maybe.
Now, what about the writing?
Well,
buckle up, here we go.
Well, first of all, I mean, the biggest thing you have to get past with this movie, and it is still a struggle, is how on earth did this park get cleared to open? Like, the events of the first three movies have still happened. People are aware of them. I mean, in the second movie, there's a T-Rex rampaging through San Diego, for crying out loud. And yet people are going to this park like, there's been about a dozen deaths by dinosaur in the world in the last couple of decades, but, I'm sure it'll be fine.
Mate, you're looking at a post-COVID world, for want of a better term. People are going,
oh, my word, you're not wrong, are you? It's all Republicans. I deserve the right to go and watch dinosaurs.
Yeah. If I'm going to get eaten, that's on my terms. My body, my choice.
Unless you're a pregnant woman, but that's a different issue.
Yeah. Well, let's not get into the hypocrisy of Republicans right now.
Indeed. The other thing related to that is that I never bought this idea that the film tries to posit, which is one of the central ideas of like, people aren't impressed by dinosaurs anymore, because that's BS. I would go and watch a Jurassic Park sequel, as people proved with this movie. I'd go and watch a Jurassic Park sequel of just dinosaurs any day of the week, all day, every day, and I'm still impressed by them. I wasn't watching Jurassic Park 3 going, oh, look, it's the T-Rex again. I'm not impressed. I was still impressed by it.
Yeah, but we're nerds, mate. I can kind of see it from that kind of thing. That it's like with Disney World, people want bigger, better, faster rides, whereas I'm just content to go to Disneyland, and I would be on Star Tours all day. Hell, I'm fine with Haunted Mansion. Hell, I'm fine with Around the World in 80 days. It's a Small World.
Yeah.
We're easily impressed. Maybe it's our age. I don't know.
I've just remembered the name of that movie in case anybody wants to pull me up on it and listens this far. It was called Safety Not Guaranteed.
Well, you got the knot right.
I wasn't even remotely close other than the one word "not." But yes, that was it. No, I see. I just don't buy it. I think people would still be, especially when you think that there's people seeing dinosaurs in person. The scene that really bugged me was, like I said, the fact that the film doesn't show you the T-Rex in the like paddock thing when the kids are watching, and the kids are turning away bored on their phones and stuff. And I'm like, bullshit. You know, people aren't that sort of unimpressed by things, are they? Or is this just a sign of my age? You know?
Yeah, I think it's our age, mate. Because when you look at the things that like astounded us and thrilled us, you show it to a lot of the younger generation, and like, okay, Grandpa, you know. So it is, but I can get. I mean, unlike I'll have to disagree with you on that. I can get on board with that. I mean, when you first get there, I would assume you're instantly thrilled. Not like the kids in this one that just really couldn't give a damn. But you know, the attraction suddenly fades. Who's to say that some of these kids haven't been before?
I still defy anybody to watch that opening scene of Jurassic Park and not feel the wonder and awe of that sort of first shot of the Brachio or Brontosauruses and stuff as they're seeing it for the first time. And that hasn't went away for me. I don't think it necessarily would, just because. Well, I wouldn't say dinosaurs are commonplace, but just because you could technically go and see them, people would still be impressed by it. And even if they weren't, I don't know if they would be more impressed by, oh, well, we've created a weird genetic hybrid of a dinosaur then. Because, like, well, and it's still, what difference does it make, you know?
Well, I think it's just supposed to be the bigger, better thing. I mean, obviously, as he says, it's all on consumerism. This entire island is just full of...
Oh yeah, and there is that very on the nose kind of like Verizon Wireless presents the Indominus Rex kind of.
Yeah, it's and that is kind of where we're headed. Unfortunately, we are a very disposable society, and everybody thought that, again, going back to COVID, things are going to be very different post the pandemic, and it's kind of gone back to the way it was before, and it's a shame.
I have a very random note, but I wanted to share this because a friend of mine actually picked up on this on social media a while ago, and it kind of bugs me too. Nobody realized in the control center scenes when they're talking about the various dinosaurs and they're shortening the names that you probably shouldn't shorten the name of a Pachycephalosaurus because it's gonna come out like a slur.
Yeah.
And they do use it twice in this movie, and I was like, nobody picked up on this. Like, that always jars when I hear Lauren Lapkus using the P slur. I'm like, oh, no.
There are quite a few things that you just think this would have been a little better thought out. For example, I mean, the Pteranodon escape. There are numerous. I mean, I'm not just on about the Pteranodon. They're worried about the dinosaurs getting down to where the guests are, obviously. The amount of structures on this island, and I'm not just talking, shelters, but the restaurants, the shops, there are hotels, from what I understand, looking at the background material. None of these guests could have gone in these things to keep them safe. They had to have them all standing in the main street.
Well, we know there's a kids' summer camp there as well, but anyway, that to me was kind of, again, true to reality, because if people were at a place like that, they would be spending their time on the main street where, as I said, Jimmy Buffett's there with his Margaritaville, and that's where you've got all the restaurants and all of the big attractions. And people would be there, and it's unlucky that that's when things kicked off, but that's where people would be. It would be like saying, well, there was an invasion of Butlins. Why was nobody in their cabin? Like, well, of course they weren't. They were, you'd say in the attractions or whatever.
Yeah, but if it gets to a point where it's a red alert and people are going to start evacuating from the island, you would have thought that at some point someone in the control center would have thought, wouldn't it be safer if we got all of these guests to stay in the room and evacuate them, one section at a time? Let's not have
you've hit on the point there, though, is that's the whole point, is the control center isn't that prepared because Claire doesn't give a shit. I mean, like, you're right. You're exactly right in what you say, but that was the moment to do that, was when the Indominus first escaped, and Claire's response was, don't even tell anybody, it's nowhere near the attractions. It's like, no, that's the point where you say, excuse me, everybody, we've had a breach. Everybody back to your rooms, and we'll start evacuating people until we get the Indominus Rex back behind any kind of wall. Not just like, it's nowhere near anyone, we're fine. And then, as you say, that's literally, I think, to show their hubris of, like, if you aren't prepared and you aren't overly safe, eventually the shit will hit the fan and you're going to regret not taking steps. You know,
but but it seems like it's done obviously for dramatic purposes, even though you just think in real life that it's like that scene where they're chasing the Indominus. They get to the Indominus, the Raptors stop. There's 5 minutes there where all the ACU troopers have the Indominus dead in the sights. The lights are on the side of the thing, and yet everybody talks for 5 minutes. Until someone goes, "Shouldn't we start shooting?"
Yeah, that's another issue I have with the writing as well, though. In a similar vein to that, is that there's literally no reason to classify what the Indominus Rex is made out of, other than the fact that the movie wants to play it as a big reveal for you later. And I hate writing like that, where it's like, well, why is it classified? There's no reason, especially if you're trying to sell this as being like a cool big thing to the audience. Like you would say, like, oh, do you want to see
front and center, wouldn't it?
Yeah, do you want to see a T-Rex Raptor hybrid? This is how cool it is. It wouldn't be like, here's the Indominus Rex. What's it made out of? Can't tell you. What's that mean? Why should we be impressed then? Do you know what I mean? Well, like I said, because they need to play it as that big reveal during that stupid moment of, oh no, that thing's part Raptor at the very end. It's like, ugh, that is lame, terrible, cheesy screenwriting 101. It really is.
It did seem forced, and yeah. It is one of those, like the in my opinion, the structure thing. You're making people in the movie make bad decisions just for the sake of the script.
Yeah, completely.
It doesn't hold up.
Yes, things happen not because they logically would in terms of this world or these characters, but just because the plot needs them to. Which, again, that's my biggest issue with this whole idea of, oh, I'm now in control and I'm going to take out the Raptors to deal with it. Because, like, why would they be better than taking, like, armies and machine guns and stuff, other than the fact that it's the plot of the movie and you had to have it happen at some point? It's like, I don't see why Raptors are suddenly portrayed as this, oh, this is a fantastic effective killing machine that will finish it off. Why? At least point out.
It does come across sometimes like it's just a series of elaborate set pieces that's been thrown together.
The thing with that, though, with the Raptors is, and I don't know if you kind of alluded to it, but I don't know if you know this, and it's, again, my issue with the Raptors idea, the idea that they can be tamed, which is stupid, and the D'Onofrio character, is that they were all holdovers from a potential fourth movie that would have been far worse had it not leaked what the movie was going to be about. And it was basically just going to be the old TV show Dino Soldiers or whatever it's called, where they were going to have raptor human hybrids that were actual soldiers.
Oh, God, yeah. I saw that. I ain't putting that in behind the scenes. That's just cringe for that.
It was so bad. They had like concept art of the humanoid, like raptor human hybrid soldiers and stuff. And I was like, if this franchise starts going down this area, I mean, then Fallen Kingdom happened and cloning was a thing, and then it's not far off, but still.
Yeah. I mean, the minute they've hit that territory, you're going into Alien Resurrection, and I refuse to countenance anything like that.
Yeah, you never go full Resurrection. So.
No. I did like the subtle nod at the beginning when Gray was looking through the Viewmaster, kind of foreshadowing the events towards the end of the movie between the Indominus and the T-Rex.
Yes. I do like, there's a lot of kind of meta references to the original movie that I think work because of my love for it, which they're pure nostalgia bait or member berries, but it works because we love that original movie, you know? And again, I'll mention it. Well, I'll mention it now. Other categories that it fits into include like the use of the John Williams theme, for example, or coming across the old park. So there's a lot of that. Sorry. A few other things about the writing that I had is that, like I said, also when it's trying to kind of be as highfalutin as the original movie and hit on a theme, it kind of gets a little better for me. So I did like the hints of like, you've got to realize we're never actually in control, as a kind of a continuing theme, which I like that because it's good to have somebody that has that common sense, I guess. But on a less kind of positive note, I just thought it was really cheesy and cliche that Owen has a history with Claire, and I never bought it for a second. Although it does lead to one of my favorite lines, which is, we have an attraction. That's not what you said last time.
Yeah.
Which is at least funny, I guess.
I think it was one date, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's mentioned to be one date.
It's. I think it was just, we need to find a way to add a little bit more drama to the script. Let's have them know each other.
Definitely. And related to that, I also thought the family divorce plot, it was just desperately trying to be a Spielberg movie and failing at it. So there's no real reason for it. It's just kind of like we have to do that bit of drama, and it just didn't ring true for me. There's also a really terrible line that I want to call out because it's so bad. When somebody, I can't remember which character it is, but somebody sees the Indominus Rex and just goes, "That's no dinosaur." And I was like, "What? That is awful dialogue. What's that even meant to mean?" You know what I mean?
It's I can't quite decide if in some parts the movie is really stupid or if in some parts the movie is really clever, because obviously they're meta-referencing the first movie a hell of a lot, and so you're kind of wondering if they're trying to create the impression that it's like a cheaper, more consumer-based version of that first one.
Yeah,
if it's trying to hammer that point home, or am I just reading too much into it?
I think you're giving it too much credit. I think it wants desperately to play to that original movie's strengths. And like I said, the fact that the sheer member berries of like, we've now found the original park and we have the Jeeps that were used in there and we've found the night vision goggles or whatever. And even to the point that they pointed out in the behind the scenes and stuff, they make pains to point out that the T-Rex is in fact the same one from the first movie. And that's why it has all of the scars that would relate to the Raptor attack and stuff. Yeah, and I was like, there's literally no reason for that other than just, hey guys, do you remember that first movie when the T-Rex saved the day? And it's like, no, stop it. There's no need.
I mean, as you were saying, it goes back to Giacchino's score. I mean, it's decent enough, but I think it's decent enough only because he uses so much of Williams' score.
I was just going to say, it's not that great, really. It's great when it uses John Williams' score, which I think is, again, that's kind of a microcosm view of the movie, is that the movie is fine, but it tries to be better by just using things from the original movie. Yeah.
There's a couple of nice cues that there's a couple of nice cues that he does himself, that he comes up with himself. But for the most part, the only thing that really stands out from the soundtrack is Williams' score.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I don't know about you, but at the start when they're going on the monorail and and everything's working and the theme music from the original kicks in.
Theme,
it makes me swell up and I get so emotional.
I'm with you completely. Yeah. Couldn't agree more. And that's in a way I resent that, because that's manipulation, because that's the music doing the work that the visuals really should be doing for you.
Exactly. It's playing on your nostalgia for the original rather than create something on its own back.
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, I did want to shout out a few good moments of dialogue that I thought were decent because they were amusing. Since I'm being negative, I'll cut back to the positive side of things. I've already mentioned the whole, we have an attraction, blah, blah thing. The discussion that Owen has when he's like, oh, these things are animals, they want to hunt, they want to they want to, they want to, you can relate to at least one of those things, which was pretty good. And her kind of getting him back with, well, you should probably take a shower, they're very sensitive to smell. Which is good.
I like I like that line where they're in the van and they're panicking, and the kid goes, "Is everybody dead?" And she goes, "Oh no, everything's fine." And the other brother goes, "Don't lie to him." And she just completely ignores the first kid and says, "He's scared. It's okay to lie when people are scared."
Yeah, it's a cool moment. It is. But related to kind of moments that I found amusing as well, one of my favorite lines was when Claire just exasperatedly is like, "Can you not track him from smell or whatever?" And Owen just says, "I was with the Navy, not the Navajo."
Navajo, yes.
Nice. Awesome.
It does have some little sparks of brilliance in there, but it's let down on either side sometimes by bookending. And don't get me wrong, I enjoyed the movie for what it was, but it's never going to be the original. But I'm not sure if they've got to a point now where even the creators are thinking it's never going to be the original. Let's just give them what they want. Let's just give them dinosaurs.
I'm kind of hoping that Dominion bucks that trend by like the fact that they've at least brought in the main three actors. You know what I mean? So
I had that vibe when I saw Ian Malcolm in the trailer for Fallen Kingdom.
Yeah, but he was in it for like 3 seconds. That was just that was the biggest misleading BS. Like how they didn't get sued, because he may as well not be in that movie. To be honest,
I was really disappointed with that one. Like the field of brachiosaurs. Once the Indominus got out and it says, he's not killing him to eat, he's killing him for sport. I thought that was quite emotional. At first, again, we're going back to the usual theme, but it's a flashback to the Triceratops in the first one. But
I got that vibe. I also appreciated that vibe as well with the petting zoo and the fact that the kids, as you said, because their kids were like, "Oh, this is lame, it's for children," and I was like, dicks.
Yeah.
People are riding
We're going back to
Triceratops, and these kids are like, oh,
we're going back to
kids.
Grandpa Simpsons again.
A little
My
bit. But
day.
no. On the other side, though, I do think, as much as I criticize the kind of plot line, I do think when the kind of kids do come together and do the whole like we'll always be brothers and they hold hands thing, that really did move me and that was affecting. And I was like, all right, if this had been the kind of the vibe the whole way through, that would have worked a lot better for me. So
Yeah, the kids, in my opinion, the kids worked a lot better in the second half, simply because one wasn't just there for the exposition, one wasn't just there to be, a stalker. Yeah. I mean, I like that thing where she says, just hold hands, and she shuts him in the back of the van, and the little kid just holds his hand out.
So I'm saying that I love that scene. That was the scene I was referring. Yeah, definitely.
Oh yeah.
But just to shout out one more bit of really terrible dialogue at the very end when they kind of have to have the dinosaurs fight each other. The line, "We need more teeth." I just groaned. That's just like, no. And the logic of getting the T-Rex is stupid anyway, but I forgive it because I want to see a T-Rex.
What do you think to Trevorrow's direction?
I think personally it was very flat because it's trying a lot of the times to copy excellence in terms of Spielberg's original movie. Whatever you might think of The Lost World, but yeah, what were you saying? Sorry,
I was just about to put. I was just saying, oh my god, this is where the part where I put that GIF of Steve Carell from The Office going, "Thank you," because that's the main point that I've got on for direction. He does a decent job. There's some good set pieces, but he's not Spielberg. I mean, Spielberg would often get the tension pitch perfect between the quiet parts and the action. Trevorrow's good, but it never sells it. Like on the scene where they do discover the old Jurassic Park merchandise, and Owen and Claire are hiding behind the Jeep, and the Indominus comes through the roof. It doesn't quite work because you know what's coming. But even though you would get that same vibe in a Spielberg movie, Spielberg somehow would manage to pull it off, so it was still shocking. It would still have an impact. Trevorrow's good on visuals, but there's something missing.
I think it's also a kind of a nerve in a movie that just says people want to see something different that then copies so many of the original beats and doesn't really give you. And I think they will miss the DNA or the Jurassic Park T-shirt or throwing in the line "spared no expense." It's all detrimental to trying to make a unique movie of the
Dilophosaurus hologram.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and then we've mentioned all the other stuff, the T-Rex and everything, but it's just weird. And if you want a good example for me of like the difference between Spielberg and Trevorrow, like there's a lot of build-up in both movies before you get to the dinosaurs, other than like the very brief raptor scene at the start of the first movie. And the non-dinosaur build-up of the first Jurassic Park is A+ filmmaking in my eyes. It's flawless. It sets up all the characters. The actors are all doing their jobs. And it's filmmaking at its best. Whereas the non-dinosaur build-up here is awful and has absolutely none of the magic of that original. You're just waiting for them to get to the park and for something to happen because there's nothing there. There's no spark at all.
Yeah. I did like as I mentioned, I did like the scene where it's showing the park in operation with the Williams score.
I don't because if you be honest, if you watch that scene on mute, you would feel nothing. So I don't really rate that.
Yeah, that's true. It is. Have we reached a point where we're so old that the only thing that gets to us is nostalgia?
Well, no, because I resent that when they're doing it for like I said, that Williams score moment. It did get me the first time in the cinema, and I was like, oh, I remember this sense of awe and wonder. And if you give me something like that, but then the fact that it didn't, and like in future watches, I'm like, this is just you trying to manipulate me into look how epic this is. But it's not.
This is the thing that I've got written down. I shit you not. This is the other point that I was going to put. When you first see it, it's impressive on the big screen.
Yes.
But unlike the original, unlike Jurassic Park, when you watch it again and again, and I've only seen it another, I think, 2 times since I saw it in the cinema at home, it just falls flat. It doesn't hold anywhere near the impact that you get on the big screen.
I don't think it's as flat as all that, so I should...
No.
Before people think I'm going to just crap all over it, I don't think it's like the worst thing ever, and it's perfectly serviceable. But the thing is, like I said, when you're following a movie that I regard as perfection, to be like fine is kind of criminal, you know?
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I would happily sit there and watch it again, and numerous times. But if you sit down and you watch Jurassic Park, you know that Lex is going to fall through that ceiling. You know that the Velociraptor is going to jump up and try and snap it as they pull her up. But even so, every single time you're on edge.
Yeah.
On this one, I didn't get any of that this time.
I see.
It works on the cinema, but when you're watching it on a small screen, it doesn't kind of play out the same.
I would counter that there's moments that really do that for me. Not to just argue with you for the sake of it, but I think the build up to the Indominus Rex is actually, even though the dialogue is horribly on the nose, I think it's well directed. And the actual kind of idea of its escape and the cleverness of like, you think it's clawed its way out, but it hasn't. For me, that kind of works really well. The actual escape of it is less impressive because it's never given the gravitas of something like the T-Rex escape from the first movie, but it still works for me on the level of like, it's scary and you have the guy hiding in behind the truck that then gets eaten and Owen hiding and stuff, even though he's got the plot armor at that point. So to me, I was like, this is fine in terms of it just kind of, it's an action beat that you would find in any Jurassic Park sequel.
But that's it. It's just, but you said it yourself in your own words. It's fine. It's like something you'd see in any sequel, but it doesn't match what you would get in the first one. And I don't know if by being raised and growing up with the first one, whether it's a desensitizers, but it feels more like a regular action movie than it would a Jurassic Park movie.
Yeah. But the thing is, I don't really mind the Jurassic Park sequels, as in like 2 and 3. I have still a soft spot for them, so I can still watch them and be like, yeah, this is good. This is good action sequence. This is good or whatever. But they're not on a par with the first movie, obviously. No. And so when there's moments like that, at least when something's happening, I'm like, well, this is Trevorrow doing his take on a dinosaur action scene, and it's, it's passable. I'll let it go. But yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed it, and I'm glad he's directing Dominion because I was completely unimpressed with Fallen Kingdom. So I'm glad he's coming back for this one.
The weird thing is with Fallen Kingdom, I was completely unimpressed with everything after the halfway point, and yet everything in the first kind of 30 to 40 minutes, I think is more impressive to me than this movie, which is really weird. Like the opening T-Rex attack in Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom is probably my favorite dinosaur attack outside of the original movie, and it's in a movie that I regard as the worst one.
The only thing that sticks in my mind from Fallen Kingdom, I've only seen it once, and the only thing that sticks in my mind is the brachiosaur running to get on the boat trying to escape, and that just kills me even when I think about it.
Yeah, it's heart-wrenching. No, I like the first half of that movie, but I think once the island's gone and they get off the island, the movie just loses any kind of focus, and it becomes stupid. It becomes Haunted Dinosaur Mansion, which daft.
Yeah. What about the FX in this?
Well, the thing is, that was one of the notes I had made about the direction, is that they do the kind of callback thing when they have a scene of the Gallimimus stampedes, but for some reason it looks worse than it did in 1993, which I don't know how they achieved that. That's quite an accomplishment to look worse. But that's the only time I would really say that, because yes, I do kind of think the actual dinosaur attacks and the CGI and stuff kind of works really well. I can't necessarily fault it, other than I don't love the design of the Indominus Rex, but I guess fair enough. I get what they were going for. It looks like a T-Rex raptor mixed with cuttlefish and whatever else kind of crap they jumped in there. So I'll forgive it. Yeah. And it is kind of good. It is effective when they have it use the camouflage and stuff as well, which could have been a really bad effect.
Yeah, I like how that was working, especially in that scene with the ACU, and they find its tracker, and all of a sudden it just comes from out of the trees.
There was one scene very early on, and I can't remember what the context was, but there was a scene when you see like the entire jungle in front of you because they are supposed to, and the I-Rex is there, and I genuinely didn't spot it, and I shocked myself because I was looking at this jungle and all I saw was a jungle, and then I saw at the corner of my eye the camouflaged Indominus Rex, and I was like, shit.
I think that's the scene that I'm talking about. Yeah, I think the FX for the most part hold. I think there's only one that looked a bit shaky to me on this viewing.
Yeah.
And weirdly enough, it was the section with the motorcycle where he's riding amongst the velociraptors.
Yeah, it's not great.
But everything else, I think it still holds up.
I will say I have to criticize this because it's the scene that I absolutely hate the most. Is the scene of Owen with the raptors that's become the iconic scene of the movie, of him like taming the 3 raptors with his arms out, because I hate it so much. It pisses on everything the first movie tried to set up about the raptors, and it doesn't make sense. Like, why wouldn't they just eat him? They dive at the gate anyway when he dives like through the gateway. So like, what's stopping them? Are we meant to believe he's just that awesomely tough? And is this meant to be exciting action? Because it's just not. It just seemed, to me, it seemed borderline offensive to like somebody who enjoys these movies.
And again,
they keep coming back to that as well with like even in the trailers for the third movie with like, oh, Blue, we're gonna look after you and your kid, and I'm like, she's a freaking raptor. She would tear your head off if you give her a chance.
But, anything else you'd like to add? Any few final words before we get to
a good little bit of directing touch that I noticed, and I sometimes pick up on these really nerdy things because I'm a film student. But I did appreciate the fact that Claire kind of starts out pure, clean white, and Owen is really grubby and dirty, and that's kind of visual shorthand by the costumer or whoever for their characters. And it also shows that Claire basically gets more and more grubby as the film goes on, and she's kind of becoming more likable and more like Owen. So I appreciated that from a kind of clothing perspective. I liked the ACU attack. As I say, I thought it was quite well filmed and tense enough. The gyrosphere attack was good, but it was just a rip-off of the first movie. So it was hard to see anything other than that. There's a couple of good horror moments, like the bloodied hand on the window that's surprisingly good as well. Some good shots of nature. It does that really cheesy thing where Hoskins, the D'Onofrio character being the bad guy, he stands and monologues while he immediately gets jumped on and killed. And I was like, oh no, never mind. Whatever.
Going back to the bloody hand, I did like the bit where on the Indominus escape, after it's eaten the guy that's sat in front of the truck, and it comes down to sniff at Owen, and there's just bits of this guy in between its teeth, and you just,
I also thought that it was really clever as well, which I haven't mentioned, that the plot does the thing of Owen disguising his smell with the petrol, because he has the sense to realize that when the Irex is attacking. And I was like, all right, that's cool. But it doesn't make it like a huge thing. It doesn't like have a scene explaining it or talking about it. It just looks like Chris Pratt dousing himself in petrol, and you're like, until you realize why, and then you're like, oh, okay, I get it. That's clever. All right.
There's a lot of good moments to like in this movie, and as I say, I could watch it over and over. And I'm going to say something that you're going to probably hate me for, but alongside the original, this is probably my second favorite.
Nah, see, I wouldn't say that. I've already made no secret to the fact that I genuinely think the movies go down in quality as they go on. So my ranking is literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in that order.
Well, we're going to come to that in a little bit. So, is there anything else before we get to the audience participation?
Yeah, just a couple of things. I will say I love the sound design in terms of like the noises that the creatures make and stuff. So I have to shout out and give credit for where it's due to that one. So yeah.
The T-Rex the T-Rex sound didn't ring true for me compared to the originals. I don't know if it's because the T-Rex is supposed to be a lot older, but it didn't have that bone jarring aspect.
Well, I think it's also because it's supposed to be the good guy, so it would be kind of weird if you were scared of it, because it plays it like here comes the heroic cavalry as opposed to like. Speaking of that scene,
now I'm picturing a T-Rex in a hat.
Give it time. But no, I have to talk about that scene, and I have to address, yes, I know there's a controversy. Yes, it is absolutely stupid that Claire's still wearing high heels and running from a T-Rex in them. I acknowledge that. Let's just move on, because that got way too many column inches devoted to it. It's stupid, but no more so than a lot of things in this movie.
We'll go to audience participation. I mean, we asked followers of the social media accounts what they thought. And while we got a few responders to the poll, we didn't get much in the way of comments until pretty much when we came up to this recording. So I'll go through a couple, and then I know you've got a couple, Mike.
Yeah, if you miss any, I've got them, but if you've got them, that's fine. That's good.
No worries. We had one from The Girl Who Waited on Twitter, who says, when Jurassic Park released, I was Tim's age and equally enamoured with dinosaurs. When Jurassic World released, it was like a blast from the past. Another wild ride that I thoroughly enjoyed. Definitely a feat of modern engineering, and cannot wait to see the original trio again. Again, people are going back to the nostalgia, I think, more than it standing on its own. Mm-hmm. We've got one from Melina Vader. Says, big fan of the Jurassic Park / World franchise. I love Jurassic World. The idea that they still think they can play God by not being aware of the consequences, and approving Ian Malcolm's chaos theory. She did also say that she enjoyed Fallen Kingdom, and the opening to that one was beautiful and scary, which is going back to what you said.
I did like that, yeah, actually. Yeah.
So you said you got a couple as well?
I do. Well, I have one from Tom Sly, who is a regular contributor at _Tom Sly, who just says, I really enjoyed it when the original theme played during the helicopter scene. I got chills. So straight to the point. Andrew Kemp at AndyKemp96, hello, says, it was perfectly serviceable fun. I really liked the idea of the Indominus Rex. It was a cool way to modernize the film for a new audience and to be able to up the dinosaur threat. Very enjoyable, if not anything groundbreaking. Okay, fair enough. That's my friend Andy there. His podcast co-host Sarah Young at Confused Sarah says, cracking, good ending, but frankly not as much of an impact as the first movie. I'm interested to see what they do with the last in the series. And Andy's partner and podcast co-host Phil at Crazy Pilf says, I was initially skeptical if World would be any good, and while there are some odd moments like the unnecessarily drawn out and hilarious death of Zara, and Jurassic World does seem to retread old ground from Jurassic Park, it's also a suitable successor with plenty of dino carnage. So that's fair enough.
That's fair enough.
The other things, I don't know if you wanted to deal with the polls and things like that. Or...
Yeah, I know you did a poll. I was going to go on the official poll first and then see what you've got. I mean, on the official one, there were 3 choices ranking from hated it, average, and loved it. Poll results were that while no one hated it outright, 44.4% thought it was only average, whereas 55.6% loved it. It seems it was popular, but a bit of a mixed bag for many. What about your poll, Mike?
I did say yes. With Jurassic World Dominion out in cinemas very soon, what would you rate the original Chris Pratt, Bryce Dallas Howard starring Jurassic World? And I gave 4 options, so it was out of 4 stars, ranging from 1 to 4. There was 36 votes. 3% gave it 1 star, 11% gave it 2 stars, 25% gave it 3 stars. But by far the winner with 61% was the highest score of 4 stars, which genuinely surprised me.
Yeah,
I think this movie is very different than what I thought at the time.
Yeah, it seems there's a lot liking it. Just out of curiosity, what were your rankings again for the movies? You said you were...
The movies. It goes basically in the order of the movies released. So the first one, my most liked would be the first Jurassic Park. My least liked would be Fallen Kingdom, and then it goes, number 2 is the second movie, Lost World. Number 3 is Jurassic Park 3. Then number 4 is Jurassic World. So, yeah, I think they genuinely have gotten gradually worse as they went on, in my eyes.
See, I'm going to go away. I'll give you mine. The first one, Jurassic Park. Mm-hmm. Second one, as I said, Jurassic World. We're going to have to disagree on this one a bit.
That's fine. That's allowed.
Third one, bit of a cheat, but I'm going to say Camp Cretaceous.
Oh, okay, fair enough. I didn't think about that.
Number 4, Jurassic Park 3. Number 5, Fallen Kingdom, and The Lost World tied because I really felt disappointed when I saw The Lost World.
I love
it.
As you say, I still do. That's where we differ, definitely.
But yeah, so now we've got that done. With regards to your favourites, do you have a favourite line?
We're doing it that order, yeah. Fair enough.
No, I'll start on favourite scene. Sorry, I got a bit sidetracked on that. On
character, moment, and line that I normally do.
Yeah. Oh, character then. Go for it.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, my favourite character, it was, obviously, I've kind of mentioned it and hinted at it. It was Lowry, the Jake Johnson character, because he is the audience surrogate. He's 3-dimensional. He's a rare for this kind of movie in that he actually does have a bit more going on than just cliche. And he is also smart, heroic, moral, funny, but still realistic. So yeah, I would go with the Jake Johnson character, Lowry, for my favorite character.
Nice one. I'm gonna say Masrani for mine.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I don't think I need to go over it again. I just think he was a really great character and a really good performance by Irfan Khan, and I'm really sorry that he's no longer with us. And for your favorite scene,
it's gonna be cliche again, but it was the end fight because I'm just a sucker for the obvious. I'm happy anytime a T-Rex turns up in these movies, I still get the same thrill, even though this movie tries to postulate that shouldn't be the case or whatever. I just love it. I love the Jurassic Park T-Rex. I think it's great. So I was falling for that. Plus, I really did think it was a clever twist that it's the Mosasaurus that kind of sort of comes out and saves the day at the end.
Saves the day, yeah.
Yeah. The fact that I didn't even realize that they're gradually edging the I-Rex closer to the pool compound area or whatever. And when the Mosa jumps out, I remember actually almost laughing with weird kind of joy at the cinema where I was like, what the heck just happened? That's brilliant. So yeah.
Nice one. I'm going to go for mine. It's not the fight at the end, the Raptor chase. Not the one where they're actually going after the Indominus, but the one where the Raptors are actually coming after them, the one where Claire's driving the van and the Raptors keep trying to get inside. Do like that. And that was...
Quite horror movie style, that scene, yeah. Very.
Yeah, I kind of like that. That was that brought back feelings of the original to me, and good feelings.
Yeah. Fair enough. That makes sense.
Okay. And what's your favourite line?
My favourite line is a joke. I apologise in advance, but it's when the kids are with Claire and Owen finally, and they say, "Can we stay with you?" And Claire responds, I'm never leaving you for the rest of my life. And they immediately go, no, him.
Yeah.
I just love undercutting of like the heroic moment.
I do like that. But that immediately comes after the scene where Claire's just kicking all kinds of ass.
Yeah.
With the pteranodons. So it kind of felt, I don't know, I just thought, I like the line. But yeah, I think to me the one is the one that you mentioned earlier.
Go for it, I'll let you read it.
Yeah. Monster is a relative term. To a canary, a cat is a monster. We're just used to being the cat.
Yes, perfect.
So, yeah, definitely. BD Wong had some of the best lines between him and Earthen Khan. Earthen Khan, sorry. Very good scene. So, do you want to give your conclusion?
Certainly. I just have a paragraph or two. So I just said, it's a perfectly serviceable film, but in a franchise of continual diminishing returns, which has never touched the perfection of the original movie. The constant callbacks to it serve to just enhance how much more poorly this is paced, edited, written, performed, and executed for the most part. There's still fun to be had, though, although slow to start when the dino carnage begins. It's as fun, exciting, and entertaining as ever, though lacking a little of the extra bite that better development of the film around it would give. Apologies for the pun. There's some clever ideas, both macro and micro, a handful of good acting moments, some really impressive directing at times, and it ends with a fan-pleasing rumble that, while cynically manufactured, hollow, and dumber than a box of hammers, still feels worth the watch for passively entertaining, cheap thrills. In fact, that's probably the best way I could sum up the whole movie. And I gave it 3 stars out of 5.
Well, that's fair enough. Okay, I'm going to give mine. It's quite long, so bear with me, okay?
No problem.
It says, Jurassic Park's one of my all-time favourite movies. Always been a dino nerd, yet the sequels Lost World and Jurassic Park 3 let me down immensely. I would personally have been happy without another entry in the series, so I approached this movie with cautious optimism. And honestly, whether it was the low expectations or not, I was pleasantly surprised with the result. Personally, this was the most enjoyable of the movies since the original for me. It doesn't come close to the Spielberg classic, of course, but out of the sequels we've had, for my money, it was the most successful in capturing the spirit of the original. That's not to say it's perfect, far from it. While it's heavy on spectacle and relies heavily on the attraction of Chris Pratt, who at that point was a rising star and not so problematic, rather than having anything meaningful to say past its initial point, it delivers plenty of almost dino action. You know, for going back to this is not a dinosaur. And a layer of commercialism over the original. For example, this movie features movie stars, in my opinion, while the original featured actors. It's a glossy coat of paint with new characters that are pretty to look at, but do not have the depth or the likability of Grant, Sadler, Malcolm, etc. And if I seem to be referencing that movie a little too much in this review, it's because it's a trait that the movie is also guilty of. It's filled to the brim with touchstones that modern audiences will recognise: the Disney-like statue of Hammond, Main Street, the monorail, restaurant franchises and merchandising. So much so that it can't quite seem to stand on its own feet without constant referral to the original. Although being such a fan, the appearance of elements from the first movie was a welcome sight and heightened the experience for me. It's very much a flashy but hollow retread, but considering that's the point they were making regarding the park in the first place, I can almost forgive them this meta-commentary aspect. The action doesn't hold up as much on home viewing as it did in the cinema, and that's the most fundamental difference between what came before and this iteration, giving an air of having slightly more style over substance. For me, this feels almost like a theme park ride based on the premise, rather than a standalone installment of a franchise on its own merit, and relies heavily on nostalgia to carry its ideas across. However, the most important aspect to me is if I had fun watching it, and the answer to that is a resounding yes. Despite its flaws, it's the closest I came in the cinema to the experience of the first film, and I have enjoyed and in some cases loved what was happening on screen. If anything, it gave me hopes that a Jurassic Park movie could be more than a straight-to-DVD option once again, and for that I'm grateful. Criticisms aside, I really like it, and if all the copies of the original were to disappear, this is the one that I would return to in its place. And I've given it 4 out of 5, which gives it an average of 3.5 out of 5.
Yeah, okay. That's, again, higher than I expected, I think, from you and the average, but
yeah.
Fair Fair enough.
Right, so there you have it. You've heard our thoughts on the movie. If you've got anything to add, please contact us either on the aforementioned social media accounts, which can be found on Facebook under Silver Screen Podcast, Twitter at podcast_screen, or leave a comment on our YouTube channel. And if you like this episode, please like, subscribe, and share, and also check out the other episodes. I'd also encourage you to check out our sister podcast dedicated to all things Star Trek. That's the Hit or Miss podcast, which, like the Silver Screen, can be found under Mike's podcasts on YouTube, as well as under Apple, Google, Spotify, and everywhere you download your podcasts. And please check that out. We've got a lot of fun stuff coming up on there. So have you got anything to add, Mike? Anywhere the listeners can get in touch or anything you'd like to plug?
Yeah, well, as usual, as you say, you've plugged both the podcasts, but we can be found Mike's podcast feed anywhere you get audio, pretty much everywhere. YouTube is Hit or Miss Star Trek Podcast or Silver Screen Podcast, as DK said. And I just wanted to thank DK for taking the lead hosting duties. And you can find me, as always, at Iron Mike Wilson on Twitter, or just my name anywhere else on the internet where Michael Wilsons are bought or sold.
Nice one. And I can be found on Twitter at aka Starlord. I've also just recently started a staff writer on warpfactortrek.com, so please keep an eye out for my articles. And, just generally check the site. I know it's a fantastic site for Star Trek fans and it's got some decent writers there. Now, Our next episode will be in a few days from now. It's with Mike, Will Templar, and myself. We'll be looking at Toy Story 2 just in time for the release of Disney's Lightyear. So if you've got any comments or memories on that movie, then again, please hit us up on social media and let us know your thoughts. So all that's left to say is thank you for joining us. We hope to see you next time. A big thank you to Mike, not only for joining me, but for allowing me to make a fool of myself in my first fully hosted Silver Screen podcast. Thank you, Mike.
You're good.
All right. Hopefully we'll see you all next time. And remember, in the words of Arnie, rubber baby buggy bumpers. Jesus, I can't say that.
We'll be back.